Well, what's the view, first of all, from Cyprus to what President Obama has been saying?
Well, I think there will be some relief, not as much relief as there was from the British Parliament, though, because with Britain out of this conflict, or seemingly out of this conflict, it means the British bases on Cyprus are no longer a target, which they very clearly were. And Britain was bringing in another country into the conflict by using these sovereign bases, or planning to use them for its part in action against Syria, and obviously that left a very sour taste in the mouths of Cypriots. So there's a lot of relief there. There'll be even more relief, but not surprise that President Obama has backed down, because a crucial question has been emerging here in this part of the world, and I'm sure every other part in the past few days, is how could the United States obtain such conclusive evidence about Assad's guilt when the UN inspectors on the ground said it's going to take them 2 weeks to analyse their evidence. And despite that theatrical performance from John Kerry last night, which was very emotional, but it really did have very scant detail. I mean, people were saying, look, you have to slow down, and I think Obama has taken Cameron's lead and says, well, actually, before I go in here, I need support. And there'll be many people in this region of the world tonight who are happy he's done that.
And, of course, in Cyprus, as you were saying, there's extensive British military presence there. And generally, I'd say, I mean, I've been a visitor to Cyprus before. I'd say that, generally speaking, the Cypriots tend to like the Brits being there as a general rule and probably feel some affinity with them. They're the customers in their restaurants and bars and etc. How do you think the local population feel about the way David Cameron handled the situation here?
Well, I think they're happy that he took it to Parliament and he didn't go gung-ho into some kind of conflict where we didn't know what the outcome would be, because the reality is, Ollie, that we are 98 kilometres from the Syrian coast. Yeah. The Syrian foreign minister said clearly on the Radio Damascus on Tuesday, if we are attacked, we will attack back. And this was the 2 days prior to Britain sending in typhoons to the British base here on Cyprus. So there is a huge sense of relief, but you have to remember, we've been through this kind of event over many years in this region. It may be a completely different set of cards next week, and the whole strike thing may be back on the agenda, but I know that Congress is meeting on the 9th of September, I think now, which may give the UN time to actually study the facts they have and actually present a report, and then everybody will know where we stand.
And I mean, as you point out, geographically, of course, very close to Syria, even if emotionally, I'm sure Cypriots would feel closer, perhaps, to the European Union. In terms of what's happening there, of course, they're at risk as well, aren't they, from the government and from the rebels, if you like, there as well, whether or not we get involved because they're so close, refugees and everything else. I mean, as a general rule, do you think people feel like we here in Britain, and particularly the United States, just haven't been paying enough attention to the region?
Well, I think you're right when you say that Cyprus is at risk from an influx of refugees, and that is an absolute certainty. And the state here have been drawing up plans for the past few months, because nobody's had their eyes closed. They're expecting at least 10,000 a day if this turns into a general conflict. There have already been people coming here for the past 2 years. This is a 2-year-old conflict now. There are lots of Syrians passing through Cyprus and Jordan and Iraq and all of the neighbouring countries here. And we know that if a general conflict does kick off at some point within the next month or so, the first place for Westerners will be Larnaca in Cyprus, and then for third countries as well will be heading here, because they won't feel safe in Iraq, certainly not in Lebanon or Turkey.